Good morning, folks. Everything new under the sun. This is kind of the biggest news that I've been reading over the last couple of days. So, of course, first we provoked war with Russia in a sort of a way, and Russia went into Ukraine, and so that war is ongoing, and the United States is involved with intelligence and equipment and funding, etc. All Europe is involved in that. But that's not enough. That hasn't led us to World War III. So I think the leaders of the world, at least the Western world, are looking for something else to push us even further into war. Because I think the Ukraine war isn't big enough for them. And now Pelosi is going to Taiwan. And there's going to be military escorts going there. And China is basically saying that's quite a provocation. That could trigger World War III. China's army posts, get ready for war. Message on social media. State mouthpiece says, let's see, get ready for war. A message posted by the Chinese People's Liberation Army 80th Group over the U.S. visit to Taiwan as reported on Friday. China's army war message reportedly generated over 300,000 thumbs up in just 12 hours, creating a high morale among Chinese soldiers. It says the message in question appearing on the PLA channel Friday on the popular Chinese social media Weibo. It says the 80th Army Group, we must bear in mind that the fundamental responsibility of preparing for war and charge on the journey of a strong army ahead of the 95th anniversary of the founding of the PLA on August 1st, Xi, also the General Secretary of the Communist Party of China, Central Committee Chairman of the Central Military Commission, stressed the need for further implementing the strategy of strengthening the armed forces by training competent personnel in the new era. It said. At the same time, and this is really where we're poking. We were poking the bear, and now we're poking China. At the same time, prominent GT pundit and the publication forum editor Hu Xinjin has claimed the Chinese military has the right to block Pelosi's plane and any U.S. fighter jet escorts from Taiwan's airspace, which China, of course, claims as its own. This after he has in the past reported that Beijing considers all options, including military ones, to be on the table. If U.S. fighter jets escort Pelosi's plane into Taiwan, it is an invasion. The PLA has a right to forcibly dispel Pelosi's plane and U.S. fighter jets. Okay, is Russia taking any part of this? Well, Russia came out and is expressing solidarity with China. Of course, China and Russia are hand in hand, basically cooperating together. China's holding the plausible deniability side in the war in Ukraine, but certainly buying a lot of Russia's oil and not taking part in any sanctions on Russia. And so Russia agrees here. A very similar situation, Russia with Ukraine. Russia thinks Ukraine is their territory, the motherland. Likewise, China looks at Taiwan as part of their land, their airspace, Beijing, etc. Says on Friday, the Kremlin issued a statement in expressing solidarity with China amid soaring tensions over with the U.S. over Taiwan. Especially at a moment Nancy Pelosi is ready to become the first U.S. House Speaker to visit the Democratic-run island in 20 years, coming just after Biden and Xi Jinping spoke by phone Thursday, where the Chinese leader warned the U.S. not to play with fire over the self-ruled island. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said to reporters, "Certainly we are in solidarity with China." It says, we respect China's sovereignty and territorial integrity and believe that no country in the world should have the right to question this or take any inflammatory or other steps, Peskov said. That's what Russia said. We are convinced that such behavior on the international arena can only cause additional tension, he added in reference to the potential Pelosi trip. So interesting there. Again, Russia's not enough. COVID's not enough. They're bringing in monkeypox, and that's spreading. And it's a the WHO has termed it a medical issue of international importance. I forget the exact terminology there, but it's effectively a step before a complete pandemic. And now we're poking China. Yeah, effectively the West is saying, hey, China, we don't have enough war yet. We need war to consolidate more power, to make more money. With the war machine, the pharmaceuticals have made their money. Now the war machine companies, Boeing and these other Lockheed Martin, they need to make their money with war machine stuff. And so let's get some more war going, and that's exactly what's happening. It appears. So incredible. A little update on this is debkafile.com. A little update on Iran. Iran is effectively a nuclear state now. And this obviously is trouble. And we know there are nuclear weapons apparently, seemingly described in the Bible. And they even show up in Syria at some point. And so Iran having nuclear weapons is significant in terms of Bible prophecy and what we see coming in the near future. Isaiah 17, Ezekiel 38, 39, the destruction of Damascus and those wars there. It's too late for a surgical attack to block Iran becoming a nuclear power. This summer, Iran will turn into a de facto threshold nuclear state, Ehud Barak says. And this is from a July 26th article. That is, Iran will have enough highly enriched uranium for one nuclear device and the technology to make a weapon. And they probably have more than that in terms of dirty bombs, etc. In 2018, they were 17 months away. Today, they are probably 17 days away, ignoring the solemn U.S. and Israeli vows to prevent Iran acquiring a nuclear weapon. Basically, they're running out of time. They're running out of options. There's lots of covert operations happening, which has so far slowed the situation. But Iran is getting very, very close. And at some point, it's going to take an overt operational strike in Iran to address this if they don't go to continue to full-scale war. And Isaiah 17, which describes the destruction of Damascus, is what looks like an opening salvo on a larger war in Iran. They can't just strike Iran. They have to strike the proxies first. Otherwise, the proxies will strike back at Israel. And so Israel has to hit its close neighbors. You think about Psalm 83 and the circle of nations around Israel first, before it can reach farther out and expand to a strike on Iran. And this is what this is looking at here. So if we go to there was another strike in Damascus here, where, let's see, Thursday's, this is July 23rd, Thursday's missile strike wiped out Iranian Hezbollah command center in Damascus. You talk about destruction of Damascus. They continue to hit Damascus. There was actually a surface-to-air missile defensive strike on Israeli aircraft with using the S-300 system in Syria. And apparently that was a bit of a mistake. Russia is not completely on board and is not stopping Israeli fighter jets incursions into Syria and into Damascus. Israel and Russia still have some agreement on the ground to not use those, although one mistake was made apparently. But they're still going in, still striking Damascus. This is still going on, month after month, year after year. But they took out a command and control, and this is what has to happen before a larger war. And if they decide to go to a larger war, they will likely have to flatten Damascus to completely get rid of all the infrastructure there, to limit Iran's ability to project force from that area. The missile strike over Damascus Thursday, July 21st, was one of the widest-ranging and strategically important operations ever attributed to Israel in Syria. It hammered the Iranian park, which Debka Files exclusive military sources disclose hosted the general command center of Iran and Hezbollah in Syria. Now, if they're doing this, one of the largest wide-ranging strategically important strikes ever in Damascus, could this mean that they are gearing up for something larger? Their Ehud Barak came out, obviously, I just read it, and said that they are now a nuclear threshold state, and it's going to take more than little strikes to deal with it now. And so you would expect that their military would then be ramping up attacks on the proxy centers, and that would be Damascus in this case. And then, so they took out this command and control. The buildings razed to the ground, including ammunition stores, stockpile of rockets, as well as the premises of the command and security personnel. Syria officially reported 3 soldiers killed in the attack, 7 injured. Other sources referred to 8 dead, including 3 non-Syrians. Our sources have discovered that the death toll ran to dozens of officers of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard and their Hezbollah proxy. Now, remember, Putin is on a record for saying, if any Russian soldiers get hit, that would be a declaration of war against Israel. And I think Russia is keeping their soldiers out of this. Right now, there is some agreement between Russia and Israel for Russia not to strike back, not to assist here. And so Israel continues to strike in Damascus. But interesting. Iranian apart destruction. And eventually there will be a leveling of Damascus as Israel decides this is it. We need to take it out once and for all instead of doing tiny little strikes. And after that, I think the move would be on Iran in a larger war. So we'll keep watching it. Again, Isaiah 17, destruction of Damascus. I don't have my keynote up, but I suspect these things are going to take place. I suspect the war with Iran and that Isaiah 17 passage are going to happen before the Antichrist figure, the world leader, comes to power. And there's going to be pestilences and other things as well. Let me shut off my alarm. I've got to get going here in a second. But I suspect that these things are going to be in place. Let me see. There we are. So I have this timeline where I think we are, and we're getting close. War is ramping up. I don't know the exact timeline. That could be a year out. I never said this timeline was 100% accurate. Maybe it's way off. I think at the end of the day, all prophecy experts are going to be totally wrong in what we saw. Maybe only pieces of it correct. But the world has to get to a very, very bad apocalyptic, nearly apocalyptic state before an Antichrist figure is able to, politically and otherwise, step into the picture to a place where people are so desperate and they accept him. Right now, people wouldn't accept an Antichrist. People wouldn't accept a world leader. They still like their sovereignty, rah-rah USA, independence and all this sort of thing. The countries of the world wouldn't stand for a world leader, wouldn't accept a world leader, aren't in a desperate enough state. But if we have world war, we have monkeypox, pestilences, all sorts of things happening, and to a state where the economy has collapsed, we have no food, no water, there is violence everywhere, that is when people will be primed and ready for a world leader to step up, declare peace, and you don't declare peace unless you're in the midst of war, right? So there's got to be war, and I suggest it's going to be Middle East war. Isaiah 17, Ezekiel 38, the first iteration of Ezekiel 38 and 39, dual prophecy there. And so in the middle of, the build-up to war, and we have it in Russia and China, and then the Middle East, then the world will accept a world leader when they're desperate, when they've got nothing to lose at that point. So it gets far worse, folks. We ain't seen nothing yet. And it's going to build up very, very quickly. And if Iran truly is a nuclear threshold state this year, then that means the war would be this year. And we see these pestilences happening, and there's going to be a buildup of those as well. I think 2022 will continue to go downhill. There's going to be more shock and awe. You notice things happening all over. The flood in Kentucky. That's a nothing burger these days, because so much news is happening that this stuff does not surprise us anymore. And so you need to keep your eyes and your ears open. Just so many incredible, amazing things apocalyptic things are happening, for lack of a better term, that people are just completely used to seeing and reading this sort of news, and nothing is surprising anymore. Folks, we are at a state where we are so desensitized to everything that's happening in the world, but more shock and awe will be coming, and more trouble will be coming, and this is not a time to let your guard down. It's not a grid down situation. It's a slow and gradual decline of society, economies, and decline and descent into World War III and absolute famine and economic collapse. That's what we need to get ready for. We need to get our hearts prepared, because none of us are going to be able to stand it, without the Lord's help in these last days. Thanks for watching, folks. I'll leave it there. We'll see you in the next video.